Welcome to the channel. Today, we're exploring some unbelievable story. Stay tuned and let's dive in. The nicest part about having to attend my wife's business party was that I got to drive my Camaro completely open. The worst thing was that the faster I drove, the sooner I would arrive. The event was held at the corporate lodge and there was a pleasant 20-mile length of road heading up to it, no stop signs, no traffic signals, and no traffic, just wide road waiting for the Ford to do its thing. That also meant no petrol stations or convenience shops. Sophia and I had been drifting apart since our daughters got married. I was hoping for the exact opposite, but it was not to be. Sophia demanded that I join her to this gathering, despite my objections. Previously, she had gone alone. Sophia drank, but I didn't. I did sometimes drink beer. She was also a social butterfly, which I am not. For the last year, I believe she was having an affair. At this time, I didn't mind. I believe it was one of the reasons we were drifting apart. I was biding my time, hoping to get out of an uncomfortable relationship. I sought a means to stop the affair. I have to accept that I am most likely responsible for my wife's decision to seek better pastures. In some ways, I'm a strange kind of minimalism. I grew up in an extremely impoverished household. My siblings and I had far less than other children our age. That includes bicycles, toys, pets, sophisticated electrical equipment, and other such items. It felt nearly like being Amish without the religion. I wasn't dumb and I well knew how the regular world worked, but I couldn't bring myself to accept it. I realized how crucial it was to keep out of debt. It was vital to pay your expenses, and it would also be good to set away money for retirement in order to live comfortably. As a minimalist, you do not need to be a zealot, but you must maintain self-control. Allowing oneself a few indulgences may help you look normal to the majority of others. My main indulgences were my marriage and family. It was quite difficult for me to locate a lady who I believed could endure my weirdness and appreciate my individuality. Sophia came from a similar background as myself and was accustomed to living a thrifty lifestyle. She didn't love it like I did, but she could endure it. The longer we were married, the more she seemed to relax. I mean, she got less thrifty and more ordinary. I didn't like it, but I understood, especially when the girls were born. To avoid seeming strange, we purchased a little practical dwelling and began to dress more appropriately. Sophia had her hair done on occasion and learned how to groom and apply makeup. We received 2 cell phones that were released last year. As the girls became older, Sophia began working. It was a minimum wage office job. We needed transportation, so we bought her a tiny Honda Civic similar to mine. Her salary almost covered her transportation expenditures, meals, and new outfit needs. It was a wash, but I was content with it. My name is Liam Thompson, which is about as common a name as a guy can have. I work as a parts puller for a local firm that manufactures industrial compressors. The work is quite repetitive, but I like it. I was satisfied with both the job and the money. I was offered promotions on many occasions but declined. I did not inform Sophia. My second enjoyment was something I concealed from my wife. I believed it would be sensible to save for our retirement. Every time I would purchase a 1-ounce Kruger Rant. I had about 30 in my basement safe and had just begun my ultimate indulgence, a 1970 Ford Camaro. My elder brother, Oliver, was murdered while working on an offshore oil rig. He gave me the Camaro in his will. I was able to keep it up on my own, but the insurance rates were too expensive. Sophia had done well while working at Summit Industries. She received frequent increases and promotions. During the first year, she spoke a lot about her career, but then it began to fade. She now seldom discusses work or the individuals she works with. I sensed something was wrong, but I couldn't pinpoint it. I was expecting to acquire a better understanding of what was happening tonight. The workplace gathering resembled a retreat. It was a weekend event. I felt out of place even having to attend it. I'd met all of her acquaintances at some point, and none of them were really appealing to me. We exited the freeway at Riverbend and I was finally able to set the Camaro loose. She answered just as I expected. Sophia was uncomfortable with the pace, but she remained silent. Yes, I did exceed the speed limit. No, I didn't care. Bill, what is the hurry? We have plenty of time to get there. Why don't you slow down a bit? I am not anxious to get there. You know damn well that I didn't want to go at all. I am just using this time to clean out the engine. She needs to run every once in a while. Please try not to be a spoil sport. This weekend is important to my career. Mrs. Harper said it would be essential for you to be here also. Alice Walton was the wife of the company's president, Alexander Davis. It was old money and old business. Why? What do you mean why is it important for me to be at this company event? I don't understand. Bill, it is critical that you fully grasp my new role in the organization so that you can provide me with the required support and backing to perform my duties. I still don't understand. I am sure that Mrs. Harper will be able to explain it to you when we get there. I have always supported you in the past. Why is it different now? My new position has a lot of unique responsibilities. Alice said that you should be exposed to them gradually so that you can fully understand them. It might be difficult for you to comprehend at first, but she assured me that you will come around. By the time we arrived at the resort, my adrenaline was pounding. Sophia's message was easily understood. It was going to be an intriguing weekend. When we arrived, Sophia went inside the lodge, leaving me to carry the baggage. I felt as if I was being put in my place. Hey, nice wheels, Mr. Thompson. What is it, a 70 or a 71? It was Jake Carter, the company's office boy. Hi Sam, how are you doing? It's a 70. Sam introduced me to his wife Emily. They were seated outside on the front porch, but it seemed like everyone else was inside. I looked around the parking lot and estimated there were approximately 16 vehicles and one beat-up old truck at the end of it. We spent the next 5 minutes discussing the Camaro. What are you doing outside? Why aren't you and Emily inside with the people? It's not our type of crowd, Mr. Thompson. We were hoping to leave early, but Mrs. Harper insists that we stay around. We came up early today to help get things set up. The caterers all left about an hour ago. You're going to have to explain yourself. Something fishy is going on, but I don't know exactly what. I don't want to get you upset, but I think it has something to do with your wife. Are you staying the full weekend? No, that's why I got my truck parked over by the side so I don't have to worry about getting out later. Every minute, things became more fascinating. So, I best move these things up to our room. Please let me know before you go. Okay, sure Mr. Thompson. Be careful. Don't do anything stupid. Luckily, there were just 2 little carry-on bags. Mrs. Harper smiled and waved at me as I entered the lodge. Sophia was waiting for me at the top of the steps, looking annoyed that I had taken so long to enter. It's about time, Bill. We have a few hours to get ready for the evening. Get cleaned up and put on something presentable. It is going to be a special night, and I want everything to be perfect. If it's all right with you, I am going to take a stroll around the property for a bit to wind down. I'll be back in plenty of time. As I walked out of the room, I felt myself smirking slightly. There was a mild cold, which made my walk more enjoyable. There were exactly 16 automobiles, as I had expected. They were largely Mercedes, with a few Jaguars and Lexus mixed in for good measure. The vehicles displayed out-of-state license plates. I was perplexed, trying to figure out how a lady in Sophia's position could blend in among individuals of that stature. She, or should I say we, were clearly out of our class. Something wasn't right. I observed Sam and Emily packing their things into the vehicle. I waved and headed over to talk briefly. I see that Mrs. Harper decided to let you leave. Not really, we are sort of sneaking out. I don't feel comfortable here, Mr. Thompson. Sam thought that maybe we should stay, but I talked him out of it. Emily responded with a question, could you do me a small favor and stick around until after the evening buffet? I'm a bit worried and would appreciate it. I have no idea what is going on, but I don't like it. Great minds think alike, isn't that right, Emily? I said, and she flushed slightly at my feeble effort at humor. I think we can. There were crab and oysters on that serving line. I think I was going to like Sam. I dressed up because my wife insisted. Before we reached the buffet, our hostess grabbed my arm and led me to a small nook. We are so pleased that you chose to come tonight to support Sophia. This is a big step in her career, and it is important that she has your full support. The increase in salary and benefits is very substantial, and I'm sure you'll be happy with it. Excuse me for asking, but what is the position that we are talking about? Sophia has been a bit evasive when I question her about it. She usually just blows me off and tells me to wait until tonight. Nothing to worry about, Liam. I think she just wants to surprise you. You didn't answer my question. There's no official title. I guess you could just say that she's a personal assistant. I see. Well, the buffet looks good. Thanks for the explanation, Mrs. Harper. Please, call me Alice. I spent the next hour or so trying everything on the line. Sophia was out networking with the important people, so Sam, Emily, and I got to spend some extra time together. We were just finishing up when Alice Walton arrived. Liam, Sophia said that you brought your sporty little car with you tonight. I was wondering if you wouldn't mind making a little booze run for us. I gave a grin and nodded. There are 3 cases of wine at the ABC store in Riverbend. They are already paid for, so all you have to do is drive down and pick them up. There shouldn't be any problems, but if there are, just call me. Make sure you take your phone with you. I'd be glad to, Alice. I'll let Sophia know and be on my way. As she went away, I looked over at Sam. Meet me outside in 5 minutes. Sophia only smiled when I told her Mrs. Harper had requested me to assist her. She just said, "Don't forget your phone." It's interesting how they both stressed the same subject. Sam, I need a favor. He grinned as I threw him the Camaro keys. You serious? Drive it down to Riverbend and pick up the 3 cases of wine at the ABC store for Mrs. Harper. I have a feeling that there might be a problem of some sort, which will result in a delay, if you know what I mean. Sam grinned and nodded. Here's my phone. Just put it on the dash. If it rings, don't answer it. Whatever you do, don't turn it off. Any questions? How long do you want us to stay away? At least 2 hours, and top off the gas before you start back to the lodge. Enjoy. It was a little cool outdoors, but I had the forethought to wear a comfy jacket. Now all I had to do was wait and see. From different positions on the back porch, one could view the majority of the lodge's interior. A thermos of coffee would have been good, but I didn't prepare ahead. I found a comfy location where I could peer in without being seen. Sophia looked to be the focus of attention. I was still not sure why, but I had a decent notion. She was grinning, laughing, and mixing like a movie star. Mrs. Harper and Sophia examined Sophia's mobile phone for around 20 minutes. I knew precisely what they were doing, checking my whereabouts. Thanks to Sam, I was finally getting into Riverbend. They both grinned as Mrs. Harper raised her hand and began to speak. Unfortunately, I couldn't understand what was being said, but everyone in the room appeared to be quietly pleased with what they heard. It nearly sounded like low-level applause. Alexander Davis approached and grasped Sophia's hand. They began up the main staircase and then halted. He lifted their hands in the air, like a victory salute, and they both laughed. I could hear them cheering as they approached the stairs. I still had about an hour and a half till the Camaro returned. I chose to take my time and enjoy myself. I always carried my trusty pocket knife. It was a present from my daughters approximately a decade ago. It was fine steel with a keen edge. I glanced over my target area and decided to start with the automobiles nearest to the resort. I took my time, there was no urgency. I gently inserted each valve stem inside my jacket pocket. I didn't want to lose any, nor did I want to clutter the Walton driveway. 16 automobiles, 64 valve stems. I had about an hour to go. What to do? 4 of the automobiles were locked, but the others were all unlocked. So I began with the nearest one to the lodge and removed the registration slips. Some were on the visors, but the majority of them were in the glove boxes. I had no clue what I was going to do with them, but I figured they could come in handy later on. I still had a 30-minute wait till Sam returned. I concluded that the valve stems on the spare tires needed to be removed. I had access to the automobiles, which meant I had access to the trunks. 20 minutes later, I had 10 more valve stems. Two of the autos lacked spare tires. I realize it was small and immature, but it offered me some little relief. I'm not a lover of confrontation, so everything I did or planned would be low-key and covert. I didn't have any self-esteem issues, so I didn't feel the need to come off as macho or heroic. I'll let all of the alpha men take on that position. 20 minutes later, the Camaro returned. Sam and Emily seemed to have liked the journey. He confirmed that there was, as predicted, a delay at the ABC store and that it seemed to have been arranged in advance. There were no calls on my mobile phone while they were away. I switched it off and removed the SIM card. They were anxious to go home. I thanked Sam, wished him a safe travel, and strongly advised him to find another employment as quickly as possible. I'm sure the cases of wine in the truck were rather costly. It was a simple thing to fix. I just placed all 3 cases on the front porch of the lodge. I didn't want them to accuse me of taking anything. The journey home was peaceful. There wasn't much in the home that was essential to me, just a few personal files, my laptop, and my Kruger rants. Originally, I planned to burn down the home before leaving, but that would have made Sophia a martyr. I did not want to do it. I was on the road within 2 hours. I did not feel compelled to leave the typical message or wedding ring. Let her work things out. I was in no hurry and had no goal in mind. I drove for 2 days. On Thursday morning, I phoned into work and handed my notice. I ordered that my last payment be mailed to my parents' home in Harrisonville. They were upset that I resigned without providing notice. I apologized but didn't provide an explanation. Waffle House serves consistently superb breakfasts. On my way in, I picked up a local newspaper and came across an unusual help wanted ad for a local grocery. They were searching for someone to fill shelves at 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. After breakfast, I visited the market. It was located in an eclectic older area of Meadowbrook. I spent the following hour driving around the neighborhood. There were several older craftsman cottages and a few mobile houses in the surrounding neighborhood. I may be okay with a little trailer, but I was expecting for something bigger. Then I stumbled upon a sign advertising a garage apartment for rent. I had not inquired about the market job yet, but I didn't want to miss out on the garage flat. The garage was not included, but when I offered an additional $50 per month in rent, they accepted. It was a modest 1-bedroom flat with a half bathroom. It was kind of furnished, bed, dresser, table, and chairs. I accepted the offer since the rent was reasonable and the location was ideal. I would deal with the bath issue later. At least I had a place for the Camaro. The supermarket scenario was somewhat different. They had a lot of applications, but not so many that they felt safe leaving alone in the shop at night. I was straightforward in explaining my issue to the owner. What sealed the deal for me was when I volunteered to work under the table with no benefits and for $1 less than they wanted to pay. They never asked for my social security number. I was thrilled, and they were too. It was a 10-minute walk from my flat. I spent the remainder of the day settling into my new house. The landlord provided me the access code for his internet, which I thought was kind. After a brief stop to the local Goodwill, I had some cooking supplies and a little microwave. I also received some sheets and cleaning materials. That night, I terminated my life insurance policy. I opted not to deal with my bank or credit cards. What could she possibly hurt? Both of our daughters were now married, making my departure a little easier. There are no grandkids yet, but I'm sure it won't be too long. I contacted my daughter, Ella, to let her know I was okay. I asked her to be ready to assist her mother if needed. Ella was aware that I had departed, but Sophia had provided no other information. She promised her sister, Chloe, an update. I erased Sophia's calls and switched off my phone again. I needed a shower, perhaps tomorrow. Not everything was ideal. I needed to locate a safe home for my gold. I recognized that what I had was not regarded substantial by others, but was crucial to me. For some unknown reason, I ended up with a safety deposit box in Fairview, Alabama. I was hoping they wouldn't link it to me at Meadowbrook. Of course, I was utterly incorrect, but I felt like I gave it my best shot. It was an almost 3-hour journey, but I didn't mind. The garage door at the apartment was rather safe, but I added a new hasp and a heavy-duty lock just to be sure. I needed to safeguard my kid. It did not take long for me to adjust into my new work. They had a guy work with me for the first 3 nights, after which they left me alone. I had no responsibilities in either the produce or meat departments. The frozen food department proved to be the most problematic. I had everything under control within the first 3 weeks. For $20 down and $10 per month, I received a Planet Fitness membership, which addressed my shower issue. The main disadvantage was that I had to give them my credit card details. I had to make another journey to Fairview to acquire a credit card from my new bank. I was starting to realize how difficult it was to get entirely off the grid. Some adjustments were going to be required. I had no clue how hard Sophia would search for me, or whether she would even try. To heck with that, I'll deal with it when it arises. I quickly mastered the routine. I began working at 10 p.m. They completed at 6 a.m. It was a 20-minute jog or 30-minute stroll to Planet Fitness. I joined mostly for the showers, but I eventually began to use the rest of the gym equipment. By the end of the first month, I was receiving over 2 hours of gym activity every day. I felt better, and I was shedding some weight. I never considered myself to be overweight, but I was rather flabby. It was wonderful to get back into a routine. My new work suited me well, and I liked it. It was repetitive, but yet unique, hard to define, but I'm sure you understand what I mean. I finished my task, and they left me alone. The gym was also a fantastic choice. In no time, I'd chosen which workouts I like and which I avoided. I noticed that training with high weights provided neither pleasure or delight. I was bored with treadmills since I ran to my exercise every day. I began each day with the Planet Fitness circuit exercise, which lasted around 30 minutes. I then did 20 minutes on the C2 rowing machine, 20 minutes on the stair stepper, and 20 minutes on an upright bike. I never acquired a television, but I did buy a second-hand desktop computer with a good-sized display. My everyday enjoyment consisted mostly on YouTube videos. I did not cook much, but I did notice that my eating habits changed little. Although it was not my objective, I found myself leaning toward a ketogenic diet. Combining that with my irregular working hours, I concluded I was fasting. After 3 months, I felt better and lost weight. It was time to contact my girls again. This time, I phoned Chloe. "Hi, Chloe, it's your dad. Well, it's about time. We were all concerned about you. Are you okay?" "Yes, I'm great. Don't worry about me. I have always been able to take care of myself. I'm calling just to make sure that Sophia is doing okay." "Sophia is doing great. It seems like she got a raise at work and loves her job. She is, however, extremely pissed at you. She said that you deserted her at her promotion celebration and then left home like a hurt little boy. Those are the words she used. She said you were jealous of her success. Well, I'm sorry, but I can't add anything to that until she is ready to tell you the truth. That is all I have. She said that things are a bit tight without your income, but with her raise, she can handle it. Well, I'm happy for her. Did she tell you anything about her new job?" "Just that she is making more money and gets to travel a lot." I did not reply. Chloe resumed her activities after a little respite. "Will you be coming home for Christmas?" "I don't think so. I'll try and send something for you and Ella." "We don't need or want anything, Dad. We'd rather have you here." "Sorry about that. I have to go now. Tell Ella I said hello. Bye." I felt a bit depressed. I got the impression that my girls didn't grasp the issue and thought I was the source of all the troubles. I was upset about that, but I didn't feel required to explain myself. Sophia showed no remorse. I felt myself becoming resentful after hearing what Chloe had to say. Sophia was doing really well without me. I still didn't understand why she needed me at home. I completed my case of black and tan and spent the weekend depressed. My beer intake had steadily increased over the previous weeks. Things seemed to be progressing beautifully. I was performing well at work and received an unexpected increase. They gave me complete control over my responsibilities, and I was able to simplify and optimize the stock replenishment system in a very short period of time. I produced a weekly report, which they utilized to determine inventory levels and restocking intervals. The store's general computer system was already doing this, but they seemed to value the hand input. My living conditions were great for my needs and within my budget. My weight was down, and I was gaining muscle. In the proper illumination, I could see a six-pack. I stopped shaving and now had a full head of hair, just long enough for a tiny ponytail. My whole image seemed to have transformed, and I seemed a little terrifying. My gym exercises were growing easier and longer. As an unanticipated side effect, I was making a few acquaintances at the gym. They were not truly buddies, but more acquaintances. I was extremely cautious around the female gymgoers since I didn't want any inappropriate interactions with the males. It did not matter. In fact, we often made fun of one another. However, there was one really unique coupling that emerged. Her name was Charlotte, at least that's what everyone called her. She was not very pleasant and seldom spoke to anybody. It turns out that I was an exception. She was there every morning and worked for at least 2 hours. It was a strenuous exercise, not a flowery yoga practice. I'd assumed she was in her mid to late 30s, hard-looking, and usually dressed in sweatpants and sweatshirt. All the other girls were flaunting their bodies in tight latex and tiny clothes. Not Charlotte. I got a lot of flack since I was the only man in the gym she spoke to or even glanced at. I did not encourage her, but I also did not reject her in any manner. To be honest, I was little flattered. After many months, I had not contacted my daughters or my wife. I simply couldn't make myself do it. I made numerous excursions to Fairview to add to my Kruger Rant collection before things began to change. "William, could I speak with you a moment?" Charlotte didn't usually start conversations like this. She referred to me as William while the other males used the name Bill. Come to think of it, she had never addressed me by name before. "Sure, no problem. Is there something I can help you with?" "In fact, there is." We both sat down on a seat and relaxed. "I have a company affair that I have to attend Friday evening, and I need an escort. I will take care of all the expenses, and I only need you to go with me. I notice that you don't drive, so I will also provide transportation if it is necessary. I can reimburse you." I hesitated, which he swiftly caught up on. "I'm sorry, did I do or say something wrong?" "No, not at all. It's just that I have a few skeletons in the closet, so to speak. If you can work around them, I'll be happy to help you out." "Okay, what are the problems?" "First of all, I am married." "Oh crap. You never mentioned a wife. I guess that queers the whole deal." "No, not at all. I just wanted to let you know up front. I haven't seen or talked to my wife in over 9 months. I don't even know if I'm still married." "Have you filed for divorce or separation?" "No." "Next, I do not have anything appropriate to wear. No suit jacket, dress shirts, or regular shoes. I have no use for any of that stuff, so I don't have it." "No problem. I can take care of that. This is why I am asking a week ahead. I do work nights, but I think I can get the evening off with no problem." "I'm glad you solved that one," she grinned as she said it. "What else? Do you want me to shave or anything?" "William, I like your beard and I like your hair, but to be honest, you're a bit scruffy. Would you mind if my stylist looked you over Friday afternoon?" "Stylist?" I sighed and nodded. It was okay. So I began a friendship with Charlotte Parker, an attorney at law. Thursday, I wound myself at Jose Banks, not exactly a high-class establishment, but a cut above anything I'd ever been to. Charlotte had planned for my visit ahead of time. I ended up with 2 sets of jeans and 2 sport jackets. They finished it up with a few shirts and ties. I pushed myself a little by adding 2 turtleneck tops to the pile. I've always loved them and thought they'd go well with sport jackets. Charlotte had prepaid everything. On my way home, I picked up a new pair of nice shoes and some underpants. I needed new underpants since I just lost weight. The shoes were moccasin style but nonetheless elegant. My appointment with the stylist went great. On Friday, the person who was taking care of me was kind and performed an excellent job. He left me with a perfectly trimmed beard and transformed my ponytail into a short modified mullet. I'm not sure what the exact description is, but it was lengthy in the back. He told me that it would be much easier to maintain. I enjoyed it. He didn't say much about Charlotte, but did remark I was a fortunate man. Charlotte arrived at the flat precisely at 6. She did not get out of the vehicle, but instead gave a brief beep. The Lexus seemed out of place in my area. I went for a grey blazer and turtleneck. I believed I looked nice, but I had no frame of reference. I was glad she was driving since I didn't know my way around the city. Charlotte, before we go in, can you explain what exactly I am expected to do or not do tonight? The first hour or so will probably be socializing. You don't have to get involved in any of that. Most of the people here will be big feeling snobs that you don't want to have anything to do with. I want you to stay close to me and keep the leeches away. Try not to be obvious, but don't let any of them elbow you out. See that I have a drink in my hand at all times, ginger ale or mineral water. Be friendly and agreeable in whatever you do. I never thought of myself as that kind of man. I don't have much experience with stuff like that. Are you going to be able to handle it? You bet. Oh, is there any food? After about an hour, we'll each get a $500 plate of rubber chicken and listen to some speeches. When that's over, there will be more glad handing. Oh, by the way, you look good. At that time, I realized I had not complimented her on her outfit or hair. I was totally out of my element. The first half of the evening proceeded just as she had said. My part turned out to be a little simpler than I expected. The room was crowded with single men, all dressed in fine clothes and wearing large watches. Charlotte looked fantastic, and most people knew she wasn't married. Many of them stopped over to visit with her. They were testing the waters, so to speak. I found myself giving everyone a squinty-eyed look like Charles Bronson. Amazingly, it worked. Every time I left her side to refill her cup, another vulture flew in. A number of them gave her drinks, which she gently passed over to me to dispose of. Charlotte gave me a couple of glances and smiled slightly. Finally, we got to sit down. $300 chicken meals arrived out of nowhere. It was a poor platter of food. I am not a picky eater, but this was different. I kept thinking about $500. Charlotte leaned over towards me. William, do you want to blow this place up? She attempted a Bogart accent, but it did not work. I did not respond to her. I just rose up, grabbed her hand, and we departed softly. I don't think anybody noticed. When we arrived at the parking garage, she took off her shoes and tossed me the Lexus keys. Find us some real food, William. 20 minutes later, we arrived at Hillbillies. We all had full racks and lengthy necks. She was no stranger to Tabasco. We both disregarded the side fries. The bibs were warmly accepted. While we ate, I noticed something unusual. Her evening gown had long sleeves. The majority of the women's dresses featured either short or no sleeves. She was also remained barefoot, which did not seem to disturb her at all. Things immediately returned to normal. My date with Charlotte was wonderful, despite the lack of closeness. We resumed our usual gym interaction. 3 weeks later, Charlotte had another event that needed an escort. Naturally, I accepted. I felt forced to explain the issue to my supervisor, who thought it pretty hilarious. Given the circumstances, he informed me that it would be unnecessary to get permission for time off. Simply drop him a letter. He essentially informed me that I was accountable for my own time and should manage it properly. Charlotte's regular gym routine was rather intense. She maintained a high heart rate and sweated profusely. She was always completely dressed. Most female gym rats wore sports bras and shorts. Charlotte donned a sweater and long leggings. It didn't seem to make sense, but I wasn't going to mention it. Our second night out was identical to the first, with the exception of no meals and more drinking. More drinking equaled more lizards probing about. Every other man who approached her offered her a new drink. I spent much of the evening gathering and disposing of unwanted glasses. One of the more irritating individuals eventually got my goat. I pulled him aside and gently warned him that if he hit on my fiancée again, I would clean his clock. He vanished for the remainder of the evening. Many other shady characters did the same thing. I had no idea I had grown so frightening. We went for sushi after the event and ended up eating $4 worth of sashimi. It was another enjoyable, platonic evening. 2 days later, Charlotte surprised me when I was rowing. "Why didn't you tell me we were engaged?" she inquired. I was rather ashamed. Yesterday when some of my workmates asked me about it. She did not wait for a response, but she did grin. I called Ella. She said that Sophia had been avoiding her and Chloe. All Ella knew was that Sophia was traveling a lot and that people were staying over at the house on a regular basis. I asked her if her mother had filed for divorce and she had no idea. It had been several weeks since she or Chloe had had any contact. For some reason, I was upset. The more bottles I drained, the worse things became. The following morning, I went to the post office and picked out a flat-rate box which I used to ship 74 valve stems to Alexander Davis at Summit Industries. I sent a little note, "Thanks for a fun evening." It had been well over a year since the party, but I was certain he would remember it. I didn't make it to the gym that day. I didn't want to exercise with a hangover. Charlotte gave me the 3rd degree the following day. I vowed to tell her everything the next time we had dinner together. She picked me up at 6 that night. Charlotte brought me to Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. It was my first time visiting a venue like that. I dressed very well for her. She listened carefully and made no judgments the whole night. I arrived back to my flat in time for my job shift. Charlotte had one more question for me the next day at the gym. Did I know any of the people who were at the lodge that night? When I informed her I had everyone's names and addresses, her eyes brightened up. After our exercise, she dropped by the apartment and I handed her an envelope with 12 automobile registrations. She took them and kissed my cheek. There are 15 kinds of lawyers. Charlotte was a personal injury lawyer. She tried to explain it to me, but I just smiled and asked her what this was going to cost me. All I got for an answer was another kiss on the cheek. 3 days later, my daughter Chloe called me. Sophia had phoned to ask if she knew where I was. Sophia was dealing with a challenge at work. She was upset and wanted to speak with me right away. Chloe declined to tell her anything. "I wonder if Richard got those valve stems," I said. I contacted Charlotte and said I'd pick her up in 20 minutes. Her workplace was located in an upmarket strip mall. It was pleasant, but not too showy. Charlotte had never seen the Camaro before, and we had never discussed my automobile ownership before. The roar of the engine anticipated my arrival, attracting numerous inquisitive spectators from her workplace. As she went out to her vehicle, I came around to open the door for her and smiled at the onlookers. Charlotte was giggling as she climbed into the vehicle. "Well played, William. Well played. I guess you'll want an engagement ring now. In good time. Don't rush it." I had the Camaro under control until we got over the Tennessee River. Then I began letting her open up a little. Route 34 into Fairview is a pleasant length of road, but not the ideal spot to show off. We were seated at Dreamland within 2 hours. "William, all of the people that were at the lodge that night were served today." "What do you mean, served?" "It's a lawsuit. The actual term is malicious conduct contributing to the deterioration of a marriage. There is really such a thing. It appears that all the required categories had been met. Their conduct was intentional, it was extreme, and it caused you severe emotional distress. Since we had only sued for $100,000, they were advised by their insurance companies to just go ahead and pay it and avoid any public litigation. It was covered by their insurance, so it was no great personal loss to them." "You mean we might get some money out of this?" "I already got 3 checks. There might be more coming." "Do you think this might have something to do with Sophia getting fired?" "I'm pretty sure that it was." "Is this going to screw up my divorce?" "Did you file yet?" "No, not yet. I was going to ask you to help me with it." Charlotte had a huge grin on her face. "William, pack a small bag and get the Camaro ready. We are going to take a road trip to see your wife. We'll leave Thursday morning early." Now I was smiling. We departed at 6 a.m. I checked into the Sheraton 10 hours later. The Camaro was pleased. I contacted Chloe and asked her to take Sophia and Ella to lunch at the Reading Motor in the next day. The talk during dinner was quite uncomfortable. Picking from the Red Lobster menu was enjoyable, and we ended up spending more money than we had planned. We didn't mind since it was a celebration of sorts. Our talk was diverse and complicated. Why? We were both careful to avoid the elephant in the room. We were spending the first night together. We were buddies without benefits for more than a year. The last thing I wanted was to make her feel uncomfortable. While I won't go into the specifics of the evening, I will say that it was not as horrific as we had imagined. We were both a touch rusty, but we got through it with the desired outcomes. She seemed glad that I wasn't repelled, and I was relieved that it wasn't quite as horrible as she had made me think. We were a pair of joyful idiots. We had a late breakfast this morning. Sophia and the girls were already at the table when we arrived. I paired one of my new sports jackets with a black turtleneck. I looked great. Charlotte donned one of her lighter work outfits, which was both relaxed and professional. My wife and my daughters looked at me in amazement. Sophia, Chloe, Ella, this is Charlotte Parker, my confidant and attorney. Charlotte, my wife Sophia, and daughters Chloe and Ella. It was uncomfortable, but it was the best I could manage. Before we could engage into any pointless chit-chat, the waiter arrived to collect drink orders. I'm not hungry. If you don't mind, I'll just have coffee. Sophia was the first to break the stillness. I promptly looked around the table and reached the same conclusion. Why don't you just bring us 5 coffees and leave a pot on the table? The waiter nodded, and everyone seemed relieved with the choice. It's nice to see you again, Bill. Would you care to bring us up to date on what you have been doing the last few years? Sophia said with a little smirk. Just working and allowing you the freedom to find yourself, or whatever you were doing. Charlotte softly kicked me under the table. I needed you, and you deserted me. You might have needed somebody, but it wasn't me. Mom, Dad, quit it. I'm sure you didn't set up this meeting so that you could sit and snipe at each other. Dad, what are we here for? Chloe was being quite forceful. I could tell this was going to be a brief gathering. I was at a loss. I looked across to Charlotte for a tip on how to proceed. She ignored me and took over the discussion. Charlotte dipped into her handbag and took out an envelope. She passed it across the table to Sophia. Mrs. Thompson, this is a divorce petition. I think that you will find it very fair. I suggest that you take it to your attorney and have him look it over. Ella and Chloe both seemed surprised. It was clear that they were not anticipating this. Sophia, on the other hand, was smiling broadly. She did not accept Charlotte's envelope, but instead went beneath the table for one identical to it in her handbag. You stupid jerk. I divorced you 8 months ago for desertion. You never got a copy because I didn't know where to send it. It's final. Whatever you got here is worthless. There's nothing that you have that I want anyway. Her grin morphed into a large smirk. The waiter came with our coffee and a full urn for the table just as Sophia stood up. She smiled at Charlotte and me, gave the girls a funny look, and then went. She left the 2 envelopes on the table. Dad, can we all stay for lunch? I hear that they have a really good quiche here, Ella said him. Charlotte and I shared a brief giggle before asking the waiter for menus. Charlotte, Ella, and Chloe enjoyed an excellent meal and chat. I felt as if I were dining alone. I never understood women very well. The ladies exchanged phone numbers and agreed to remain in contact. After returning to my room, I began packing. William, I thought that we were staying another night. We are, but not here. Hurry up and pack. An hour and a half later, we arrived at Elton, Maryland. Charlotte Parker changed her name to Charlotte Thompson 30 minutes later. We spent the night in Lurie, Virginia. I wanted to travel further, but we didn't make it. We bought a home with 3-vehicle garage. That is another tale. Sophia, according to the girls, had a rage when she discovered I had received $2 million from Summit Industries. Sophia relocated to Iowa. I'm not sure why, but I believe it has to do with the $2 million. We slept overnight in Lurie, Virginia, and then resumed our journey the following morning. Charlotte seemed upbeat, and I wasn't rushing. The Camaro raced down the highway as we relished the trip. I was finally feeling free, no longer oppressed by the weight of my history. Sophia, the home, and my previous existence were all behind me. With Charlotte at my side, the road ahead seemed like a blank canvas with endless possibilities. As we approached the borders of a small town, Charlotte turned off the highway and onto a side road that went to a calm, deserted place. We came to a little cafe with the sign over the entrance, Mama's Kitchen. Charlotte had made a choice, a plan for us. She had that familiar glitter in her eyes. She was constantly 3 steps ahead, and I was simply trying to stay up. "You know," says Charlotte, "this could be the beginning of something more. We've both had our share of craziness, but now, we can finally have something real." I nodded, recognizing she was correct. There was no more hiding from the past or pretending. This was our opportunity to create something new together. For the first time in years, I felt like I was just where I should be. Charlotte and I spent a few more days driving, admiring the views of little towns and peaceful roads. It was not luxurious, but it didn't have to be. We weren't pursuing anything or anyone anymore. We were just enjoying the journey, just the two of us, in a world where time was irrelevant. Every day seemed like a fresh beginning. We eventually found ourselves in a peaceful section in a town that seemed like home. Charlotte had always had a keen eye for detail, and she had identified the ideal location for us, an ancient farmhouse in need of repair but full of beauty and character. We settled down, and for the first time, I didn't feel compelled to hurry or go. We were starting a life, constructing something genuine from the ground up. Sophia's divorce was completed soon after, and she went on with her life. She had received her $2 million settlement from Summit Industries, and she seemed to be doing well. I'd heard from Chloe and Ella many times since then. They were doing well, adapting to the changes. Sophia had assured them she was great and had finally gotten everything she wanted, but I knew it was all a show. I was finished with that chapter of my life. The Camaro was safely kept in the garage as we settled into our new lives. Charlotte and I worked on the home together. She'd put her abilities to good use, ensuring that everything was done correctly, but I spent my time correcting the little details, small fixes here and there. It was not flashy, but it was honest labor, and I was satisfied. We weren't affluent, but I found comfort in the simplicity of our lives. We didn't need a house or expensive automobiles to be content. I had the lady I desired, a place to call home, and the freedom to live my life on my own terms. What more could I ask for? One day, as Charlotte and I sat on the porch, drinking iced tea and watching the sun set, I realized how much I had changed in the previous year. I was not the same guy I was when I initially left Sophia. I'd let go of the past, acknowledged my errors, and gone on. It was not flawless, but it was authentic. And it was plenty for me. Thank you for watching. What if you had to leave everything behind for a new beginning? Share your opinions in the comments section below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for future tales.